Welcome to Odyssey's Influencer Insights, your go-to place for anything influencers. Let's jump right in. Hey everyone, welcome back to Odyssey's Influencer Insights. Today I'm excited to introduce Kadian Hall. Kadian is a creative director of photography, and founder of Juice Picture, a production house specialized in branding content, commercials, and photography. We'll dive into his inspiring journey from aerospace engineering to photography and filmmaking, and discuss what it takes to run a successful production company, as well as exploring his insights into storytelling, building creative teams, and everything that goes with that. So without further ado, Kadian, welcome to the show.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me, Ezra.
Of course. So I want to start and hear a little bit about before you got into photography and your company that you run now. I saw that you started at school in aerospace engineer, and that seems like a very different career path than what you're doing now. So I'd love
Yeah.
to hear kind of about that.
Yeah, so I went to the University of Hartford in Connecticut and studied engineering, as you mentioned. And pretty much I was always into the creative filmmaking, photography, anything that was like visually appealing. That was like my aura. Anything that looks good, whether that was fashion, cars, architecture. It just gave me an immediate dopamine sensation. Like I just like it. And it's actually a part of my astrology for our astrology fans out there. So, being an engineering student, I was a part of a lot of extracurricular activities on campus and groups. One of them were campus activities team, which was CAT, and we put together our student body events. And by my sophomore year, I was promoted to lead student publicity, which was pretty much the term that they use for marketing. And we were in charge of putting together the spring flings, the winter concerts, and reaching out to artists and producers to get their artists to come and perform. So freshman year, I had a insight from my sister's friend named Java, who she went to high school with, who was also someone that was working for Cat at the time. I guess she like called my sister called her and said, "Hey, my brother's starting at UHart this year. He's looking for things to do on campus. He's staying on campus." So Java was like a grad student at the time. I was a young freshman, 18, and she pretty much called me into the office and was like, "Hey, this is what we do. You and your sister and I go way back, and we do some cool stuff, and we have a spot open if you're really interested in just seeing what we do." And when I was a freshman, just wanted to be cool and like do cool stuff. So they used to do like trips to Six Flags. They used to do like go-kart trips, and these are like the small things, and laser tag, and pretty much like I'm a planner. I'm a huge logistical guy who just likes to bring people together, kind of produce the thing, whether that's an event or some sort of production. And that kind of triggered into like my engineering mindset of like logistically always wanting to just plan something. So I love the whole production and logistics standpoint. So going back to that time, Java introduced me to the director of student activities, Felicia Bumpus, and I call her my campus mother. We still keep in touch, but she liked me. I interviewed with her, and when you worked for campus activities team, it was a job. You got paid every 2 weeks. It wasn't that much, but as a college student, anything helped. And pretty much she gave me like the smaller events to start working on. Battle of the Bands, where like bands on campus would just come together and perform at our commons. And then we would have judging, and then the talent shows, and then we would do like intramural basketball leagues and just programs, and then kind of earn my stripes freshman year into sophomore year, where we would have like summer retreats, and then they asked me if I wanted to lead student publicity for my leadership skills. So they gave me the opportunity to come in during that summer. And mind you, I already was working engineering internships. So at the time, I was working at Otis Elevator as an intern during the summer. So I was working and then I would have to drive to campus to start programming for the upcoming semesters. And it was fun. I had stuff to do. I like to stay busy. And pretty much she's like, "Hey, we're gonna have Sage the Gemini, who was at the time he was a big artist at the time. He had his run. And she said, I want you to work on getting our sponsorships and work on just pretty much the media outlets, getting the flyers designed, getting the marketing materials, signage, all of that stuff." And that's what I like to do. I'm having a minor graphic design background at the time. So then fast forward, started from like medium sized on campus concerts to then by my junior year, us having public festivals where we had French Montana, we had T.I., and we had Bryce Vine, and that was our biggest show. And she said, "Hey, Kay, we getting all these big artists and big attention now at the school. We need to start filming these things." At the time, I didn't own a camera. My sister brought me a camera in the eighth grade, and that was like my own camera, but it wasn't like a professional level. It was like a Sony point and shoot. So she was like, "Hey, find some cameras and like do some research, get me a kit list, and anything we always needed." She just says, "Just put it in the Excel sheet with the link, send it to me." So that's what we did. And I was on YouTube and I'm like, best 4K cameras on a budget. And a Panasonic G7 came up. And at the time, that was a very good camera, very overkill for what we needed. But I always liked the Panasonic brand from like TVs at the time. So I'm like,
Hmm.
they had to make good cameras too. So she got us the Panasonic G7 for the group. And then I was the one who like opened it up, put it together, started going on YouTube and kind of like seeing how to use this thing. And at first, absolutely terrible, like, but I always had the mindset to just like, this is what I want to do. I don't care if the footage doesn't look good. My settings are in auto. I'm just like letting the camera do its thing, but like not using the manual settings to dial in my look. But then by the time we had these big concerts, I was pretty decent. And I was doing like music videos. I did a couple weddings just to get familiar with like how to operate a camera, and then started like investing into like better glass and like more bodies. I told myself like this is what I want to do. Yes, I was an engineering student at the time, but this is really, really what I wanted to do in a sense of like, I love making people feel good about themselves on camera. And when you photograph somebody, it's bigger than you. It's like you are showing someone an image of their self, right? It's like if I take a portrait of you and it's like a great image, that's an everlasting memory for you. So to me, it was bigger than owning a camera and taking a job. I just like the compassion that it brings within people, So
Hmm.
fast forward, I was also a part of other groups on campus, NSBE, which is the National Society of Black Engineers, which got me a lot of my internship and my permanent job once I graduated. And then I was also playing pro-am basketball. And then I was also having events and parties. And I was the guy. So fast forward, I got my official job offer to work at Pratt& and Whitney, which is an aircraft engine manufacturer. I accepted the job. And senior year, it was like a breeze in the sense of like, okay, a lot of pressure is off of me.
Hmm.
I know I'm gonna have money when I leave here. And I was like, how can I figure out a way to run my own business at a point? So I knew if I was able to work corporate for a few years, learn how corporations run their systems and take that knowledge and implement it into what I want to do, that was my plan. But I did like working. It was fun. I was a manufacturing engineer on the aerospace side, working commercial and military. And for people who know about airplanes, I was manufacturing the Airbus A321neos, which is one of the latest engines. My design team was one of the first to create the blueprints and schematics of that engine. So a lot of airlines like United, Delta, JetBlue, they're all buying the Neo engines. And just for the nerds out there, what was so special about this engine was there's a system called the gear turbo fan where there's multiple gears going at different RPMs within that engine, which ultimately it can take in as much air as possible, as much bypass air as possible, without causing the engine to work as hard as it should, like previous legacy engines. So that allowed the engines to work 20% quieter and emit 20% less fuel efficiency. And everyone wanted that because if you can land at night and not get ticketed or fined for noise ordinance, or if you can run your planes domestically from LA to London without stopping because the fuel is 20% more fuel efficient, that's a huge selling marketing point for a lot of companies. So I was a
Mhm.
proud engineer on that project. And then I went over to military working on the F-5 engines, and then did a little legacy engines too with the F-16s, F-15s that are still being manufactured, which they call overhaul and repair. They aren't making them. They're just like refurbishing and like keeping them in backstock for our allies who aren't flying the latest fighter jets, but still keep a fleet of 15s, F-16s. And then while this is all happening, I was like coaching a basketball team and pretty much just like staying busy. Was shooting music videos. My first professional insight was New York Fashion Week. And I would say this is like 2017. I just started really looking into like where can I start as far as being a creative. And I knew New York Fashion Week was a thing. And a lot of big brands were showcasing their apparel, inviting a lot of influencers and top models to just participate, walk the shows, or just come as a guest. So pretty much I went on NewYorkFashionWeek.com and saw all the brands that were present. And I went on LinkedIn and kind of like got as many contacts as I could and just sent an email blast to like it was like 100 companies on that list. And two of them out of 100 got back to me.
Mhm.
And one of them was like, hey, you available to meet with us? It was like a Monday when I got a response. Could you meet us on Wednesday? So I talked to my dad about it. He was like, yeah, just get on a train. And from Hartford to New York City on the Metro North, you can get to New York in about an hour and like 45 minutes, depending on if you take the express or the local. So he came with me. He actually came down to New York with me. And we took the train to Grand Central Station and he just wandered Times Square and I met up with the company actually. And they liked my work and they said, hey, we'd love to have you. We have some models coming in from Brazil, from the UK that's going to be wearing our stuff. We'd love to throw you in there. And I was just so excited. And at the time, I had a very serious camera kit. I was shooting on the Sony Alpha 3 with some Zeiss primes. And for those camera people out there, I'm a prime shooter, but I am giving zooms a go because it is starting to become a hassle carrying several primes through the airports. You know, I'm just getting older now and I want to have a more ergonomic approach and not have a 80-pound backpack on me sweating through TSA pre-check. So yeah, at the time shooting Sony G Master and Zeiss FE glass, and I killed it. You know, they said we'd love to have you keep working with us. So they invited me to Miami Swim Week, and I started working with brands. And pretty much like you're not gonna make money shooting runway, but you will make contacts to make the connections that you need to shoot with brands, because if you're at fashion shows, you're only there as press. So no, I wasn't getting paid until they asked me to come out. I think New York Fashion Week was my like trial. So you're not gonna get paid when you first start shooting fashion because it's all press and everybody wants to shoot, so they're not gonna pay you. It's like all the press assignments are for all these different publications, But there are times where you can get a job and shoot for Getty or Harper's Bazaar or any one of those, they pay.
Hmm.
But I knew like, okay, this isn't gonna be like the end all be all for me. Like I need to make connections when I'm at these places, when I'm backstage, and like if there's Dior makeup or Kevin Murphy or YSL Beauty backstage, like I need to know who the head of experiential is or who the marketing manager is. There's always somebody that knows somebody. And
Hmm.
that's the mindset that you got to have as a creator. You can't just work a job and go home and just wait for the next job. Like you need to, before you leave, at least make three contacts, whether that's somebody within the crew or whether that is somebody on the brand side. And what they're going to say is, we work with this agency already. And then you follow up with something like, that's really good, that's cool. However, if there's a need for anything that's a little bit more specialized, or if you guys are looking to do another bid out for another production company, here's my contact. And then you connect with them and you don't solicit yourself, you just keep that relationship going. If they connect with you on LinkedIn, they see what you're doing. And once they see you working with brands that are like competitors to them or like on the same level, they will circle back. And that's a tactic that I've used, going on. But I don't want to keep going off on a tangent. But that's pretty much like I started photography based on extracurricular activities on campus that pretty much got me to where I am.
Hmm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It definitely
Yeah,
seems like there's a lot of moving
there's
parts
a lot of
for
moving
you at
parts.
school. Yeah, you definitely were keeping
Yeah.
yourself busy, and great advice there on that second piece about starting your photography. So I just want to go back in. You mentioned that, yeah, during your extracurricular activities, you're getting into that film piece, but you're also doing your engineering degree and you got that engineering job, right? You were interning and then you got that job full time after your last year. So did you end up accepting that job
Yeah, so I worked about 3 years.
out of school? Okay.
3 years, and then I actually went through a program, a manufacturing like graduate program,
Okay.
where the company paid for this program, and it was rotational. So I was living in West Palm Beach at a time at the test facility and at Lake Okeechobee, and it was fun because I made connections in Florida at the time and Miami as well. And I was a first and second shift engineer lead. And it was basically just collecting data and making sure like everything's working well. As far as it's crazy because as an engineer, it's like everyone thinks it's super hard and it can be, but
Mm-hmm.
all of the calculus and science, physics, all of that stuff, like you don't use it at all.
Mm.
Once you get there, it's
Interesting.
like you just go through the pacing of like juggling so many classes and courses and labs that may be challenging, but like when you get there, it's more of a sense of being a problem solver. And you have so many people on your team who may be way smarter than you, or you might be just as smart as them, but like it's all communication as an engineer. And there's so many softwares that help you be able to find, like in class, you had equations, calculators, but like there are softwares that help you like tell you the aerodynamics of a turbine. You just plug it in and it tell or like
Exactly.
it tells you the RPMs of
Mm-hmm.
like it just all the stuff that we had to struggle with in school, like it tells you all of that stuff. But as far as like the transition, a lot of opportunities came about because I put myself there. So, like when I was in West Palm Beach working second shift, I was in Miami during the day and I was testing with like modeling agencies. And when you test, you pretty much like send them a mood board, you send them a body of your work, and then just build that body of work. And then I didn't just sit around. It's like I wanted to work with like new faces and agencies. And working in Miami, you got to be stern because Miami's like a party city. But you got to be
Mm-hmm.
disciplined. You got to let people know like you mean business. Because you, a young kid, you walk into a modeling agency, like unless they know that you're serious, like nobody might not take you serious. And an example of that is I was going back with a talent agent at an agency and sending them mood boards and like them sending me comp cards of models, and then just following up every day until my time was for that shoot. And then we get to Miami and I'm reaching out to the booking agent and he's like, wait, it's today? And it's like all of this work that we put together with these mood boards, me paying for makeup artists for the first time, and makeup artists aren't cheap. You know, at the time, this was like a $300 like job. Now makeup artists are like between 800 to 15. In LA, it's high,
Yeah.
but back in 2017, as a 22-year old, coming out of pocket 350 to get makeup done and another 300 for a stylist, and then credit card exchanges and transactions and getting hotels and trying to make it feel like the right thing and the real production is a huge investment. And I just knew if I kept going, I would like use my vacation time to like go to LA, but I wasn't just going out there just to like have a vacation. It's like I need to go out there and test with some models or like get some camera footage in the sense of like stock footage or creating a reel for like travel work because I always loved to travel. And during the pandemic, once like traveling and COVID was like a thing, it was cheap to go everywhere. And I mean, you can go, we went to like Mexico a lot. We went to Cabo. We went to where else did we go? We went to Colombia. That's when I went to Dubai, like right before COVID. And I just created this huge body of like travel work, right? And this is when we were working remote. I just had to VPN in, dock in to work, and like meetings were thin because production wasn't really a thing during COVID. And I would reach out to hotels like as like a travel influencer and say, hey, I'm a creative. I have a drone. I have professional cameras. I love to come and deliver some virtual tour videos, some aerial footage in exchange for a couple nights or some free meals. And since COVID was so slow, like everyone who I reached out to was like, yeah, that's cool. So I built up a lot of, and I had a lot of Marriott points already from like corporate travel. So it kind of was like a win-win, like rental cars, hotels, Marriott, Hilton. A lot of those were corporate partners of Pratt and Whitney, so we would be able to like stay as employees, and like I built up that. So it wasn't like they looked at my Bomboy account was like, who is this guy? We're not gonna give him anything. So like when I showed them my Bomboy status, and then with the combination of work and then just my eagerness to follow up with them and put something together, it kind of like put me in a green spot with a lot of hotel chains. So I built this body of work and it attracted real clients. And I would post like 10 to 15-second inserts of these aerial clips on LinkedIn. And a lot of marketing directors from hotel chains would like interact with it and then meet with me virtually. And that led to like some work with Marriott and a job with the Win in Las Vegas. So it's just like, to me, I knew if I just invested in myself, you know, paid for the plane tickets, but I knew if I can get somewhere to stay and deliver a product that was like better than most travel creators because I had the production film skill set, but like I wouldn't call myself green at the time. I'm way better now. Like it's night and day now, but like what I was putting out at the time was like better than your average YouTuber or travel couple that was posting drone stuff on the internet. So that was pretty much like my leverage of like building that passion of like, okay, I love to travel. I like fashion. I was even buying clothes and like tagging brands, and they would I was reposted by like Banana Republic, and that was cool. So it's like if I
Yeah.
can make this a reality of being able to travel, being able to wear clothes that I like, and make connections and create the visuals to get me to where I want to be. This is what I want to do.
Hmm.
And that pretty much like helped me understand who I was as a personal brand, and it helped me create my emotional and physical brand as an individual.
And what you're talking about there, the photography with the travel with those different hotel companies, as well as the fashion, that was before Juice Production, right? That was before your production company. That was more just odd jobs that you're saying, like for your personal business, right? So,
Yes.
what was that transition like from those jobs to creating that your own business?
So I knew where I wanted to be. Now, there's a lot, at the time there were a lot of like social media marketing YouTubers or like social media retainer client people who were like selling courses and like doing like fast content, but that wasn't necessarily my style. Like I like the high-end commercial look, but I wasn't there yet as far as like connections or body of work. Or yes, I had Sony, and then I jumped into Black Magic cinema cameras, and then got into the red cinema cameras, and now
Mm.
shooting on Sony Venice and Arri Alexas, and it takes time. But ultimately, with that, the start of it becoming what it is now was just having people that were shooting that type of stuff in my face, whether that was on social media, like following some DPs, following some Behance accounts that would post this type of work, following ad agencies that were doing the Super Bowl commercials, that were doing the high end fashion, doing the car commercials, and emulating that style. But even living in Hartford, Connecticut, and like realizing like these type of people aren't here. I gotta relocate. Gotta go to LA. Gotta go to New York. Gotta go to a bigger market where I can meet like-minded people who want to collaborate and shoot this type of stuff. And I realize a lot of people in small cities are one man bands. Like they shoot, they edit, they color, they do sound mixing, they deal with the client, they send the invoices, but you only can go so far. You know, like me having that corporate experience where I know work is delegated from leadership all the way down to hourly workers. You have to have that same type of mindset of having a team. And
Hmm.
once I started going to New York and meeting other DPs, other directors, and seeing how they do their stuff and getting on their sets, PAing, you know, being a Swiss Army knife in a sense of at the time, like I still might PA. If there's a feature that I can learn from like some folks, even though if I asked to PA, people would probably laugh at me, you can never stop learning, you know, like you should always be a student of the game. And I feel like a lot of cinematographers or directors in LA, especially, have that ego or pride mentality where, like, this is the look I'm going for, or this is how I want to do it. But that may shoot them in the foot later on because you gotta let your team be a voice and you gotta seek feedback. And once you meet people, like I'm in LA and I'm so connected now where like if I want to shoot a movie, I can. If I want to do my own passion projects, people will show up to bat for me because I've helped them so much where I hired them or gave them a connection or got them on another crew or just gave them some life advice. And I think keeping your network strong is the key. And that's how I got the transition to go where I wanted it to be from single camera travel creator to now medium sized creative production house, working with Doritos, BMW, The Wind, just to name a few. And it's tough, it's hard. And I read this quote not too long ago, and it said, you got to choose your hard.
Hmm.
And working corporate is hard. You know, you either gonna complain about your boss or your team, or you want a salary increase, or you're gonna start your own business and like struggle. Where like I left a high six-figure paying job
Yeah.
to like starting over, you know, and like now it's like some months I might do five figures, some months I might could do six, some months nothing, the next 3 months nothing. But it's like I'd rather that
Hmm.
than a constant 100K salary where it's super taxed and I have to ask somebody if I can go on a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
and then them saying yes, but then might be throwing you under the bus because they really want you to be working, but like it's a whole like mindset of like you should be working, you shouldn't be having your life experiences, you're young, you should be trying to move up in the company. It's a lot of self projection. It's a lot of people like wanting what they didn't have for you, or like trying to put that pressure on you because they couldn't do it, you know? So, like, me as a subject matter expert, working with a bunch of baby boomers, they would send a young guy out to go see all the suppliers because nobody wanted to go to Asia or Europe to go meet with clients because they've done it for so many years, or they just didn't want to do it. So, or he doesn't have a family or kids. So, like, send him. But it's like, okay, I don't mind going to Japan, but if you go twice in 1 month, it's kind of crazy. And then having to come back and report to a VP and make three different presentations because the VP presentation needs to be 3 slides because he doesn't have time or she doesn't have time. And then the AD's presentation needs to be 9 slides because they have a little bit more time, but like they need to know more beyond surface level. And then my direct boss slide needs to be 20 pages because he knows exactly what program I'm working on. So it's like that's how you have to work in corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like I can be doing all of this stuff for myself. And one thing that I did implement into my company that I learned that from working in corporate as an engineer is something called standard work. And standard work is pretty much a process flow of how you do something. So, as an engineer, you make programs, and the programs have instructions, and we call them work instructions. And that's when the operator will load your program into a machine that is making the part. And there are different procedures. For example, you go into a program called Salumina, and it starts off like measure the part and load the part into the fixture. Make sure it's within 10 thousandths of an inch within the blueprint drawings, and turn the machine to this speed to get the first cut. And these different instructions have to be tight to avoid any operator error that can result into $40 million of waste, and that's called scrap. So as an engineer, you have to like keep tabs on like what's working, what machines are more efficient, and sometimes those machines break down. So then now you have to like go call the tooling department, and the tooling team might not have that part in. So now that part is coming in from Germany to fix that machine. So now Airbus is calling saying, "Hey, we're back ordered 30 engines. What's happening?" So now you got to really like cover up for the whole company. And that's one person, but you have a team to help you. But this correlates to production because when you're out here as a director, as a cinematographer, as a producer, a lot of things on set happen where you need to improvise, or you need to problems arise and you need to put out fires. And when you are at a point where you're on location, say the power goes out, you as a producer might need to have a fail safe, a backup location to do a company move, or there may be a time where you don't have a permit to shoot somewhere, but then there might be a backup location where you don't need a permit. So it's like as an engineer, you have these fail safes in case like this part of the engine is on fire, this part can come in and not have the plane land, have to do an emergency landing in the Pacific Ocean. So it's like I knew I took the standard work procedure and implemented it into my company where if something happens to me, knock on wood, someone can log into my Google Drive or Dropbox. I have multiple copies of like how I run things. And what do you need to start a production? And that is hire a production manager, and then it trickles down to hire a production team, so a production coordinator. And then I have a list of vendors and list of crew members from all different departments: camera operators, camera assistants, focus pullers, gimbal operators, steady cam operators, RA Trinity operators. about 10 to 12 different numbers that you can call. If somebody's not available, go to the next. From highest skill rank to pricing. I built these macro systems just like when I was working. So I feel like you have to have these systems in place to be a legitimate company and to be taken serious, because there's so much that has to go into it as far as what you need to do to get to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to hear how your engineering background has played into what you're doing now and growing the
Yeah.
business. And what has that been like from, I see like the skill set and what you've been able to implement, but from being a corporate employee to now running your own business where you're managing multiple employees, has that been a big learning curve there as you're kind of taking on a very different role?
Yeah, so I don't have like an exact number of employees. Like everyone's like 1099 contracted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I don't have the overhead now because it's like I'm still relatively small. But there is gonna be a time where we will have people come in and like have a desk, and that's the next step for us.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I wouldn't say it was a learning curve, because as a senior engineer, having to talk to multiple people who are older than me, like my dad's age, baby boomers, Gen X, people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and kind of like lead teams, lead groups, and like seek feedback, deal with different personalities. Having a sister that's in HR who's able to give me different perspectives of how people may think, having to go through ethics and compliance courses to be a senior at me. I'm just having that corporate knowledge and like going to further my education and working with different professors and just having that sensibility of when to say things to certain people, how to say it. Delivery is important, and making sure you put people in a position where they are happy, and if they aren't, work with them to get to a happy medium and compromise, where it's like you want to put people in a place where they'll shine.
Mm-hmm.
People leave a company due to leadership, due to culture. And if somebody says, "Hey, Kay, I'm not really comfortable pulling focus on this one because we're shooting on anamorphic lenses wide open for my camera people out there," I won't put you out there to make you feel bad about yourself because our footage is looking soft. We'll pull you to the side and give it a couple more tries. But if not, then my second AC, who might be a phenomenal focus puller, might want to step in. So it's like making people feel good about themselves, not like making people not feel valued, and like just treating people with that respect that they need to want to work with me again. Like today,
Mm-hmm.
being doing payroll, paying people from the last job. That makes me feel good because I know it's tough out here, especially living in LA, and people need money. And I think if I'm someone who can like be a mentor or be someone to just even talk to, whether that's not production or personal, and like be able to financially assist people when I can, I think that's my purpose on life, is to like ultimately help people who are passionate as me, who will go up to bat for me, and who are just as equally or even more enthusiastic about production than I am. So it's pretty much like the transition wasn't a learning curve at all, because I'm a people person at the end of the day. Like I used to host basement parties in high school. Like my dad was like, "Hey, basement's getting too small. We need to start having it in the backyard." Okay. The backyard's getting too small. We need to rent out a hall. Okay. And then it's like, that's what we did. Like my parents always invited my friends over to eat, and that fellowship allowed me to grow up that same way, as far as like being welcoming. Like yesterday, I'm home in Connecticut, and I got 20 people to come bowling yesterday,
Wow.
because it's like, okay, he's in town, he's doing his thing, we still keep in contact. People I haven't seen in years. pulled up. So it's like being a nice person at the end of the day is what it is, but like you'll still run into like assholes or like people who aren't that great to work with, and you just take mental notes, but you never outburst or like stoop down to their level because a lot of people are watching and I have a lot to lose. And
Hmm.
one bad comment about, oh, I was working with Kadian. Oh, he was cool, but like he said one thing that was like a little inappropriate or like wasn't the right time. And that might be somebody who works at Hulu or Netflix or a bigger production company that was looking to hire us to shoot a show. So it's like there's some people who I hired who will never hire again, but like on the behalf of our interaction, they probably wouldn't be able to come up with that conclusion. It's like in college basketball, high school basketball, your coach will say, "Oh, Ezra, you killed it, man. We're going to call you back for sure," knowing you played bad and you didn't make the team, right? But it's just like, that's just how it is. And
Yeah.
then people ask me for feedback. I give them honest feedback. I'm like, you got to work a little faster. Don't be on your phone as much. If you've done what you already had to do, you need to ask for more and look busy. Like if I see somebody on their phone or fidgeting or like not helping another department or just like needing to be told, those are just red flags for me. And I'm paying people 800 a day, 1,000 a day, 1,500 a day plus. And it's like I could have called somebody else. Like you got the job because of me. It's like there are a lot of great focus pullers or camera operators in LA, but I called you because I believed in you. I see that you're passionate, but then you don't really know somebody until you work with them. And that's the thing. Like, are you going to be an asshole when we're like 10 minutes wrapped and we need to get this last shot, or are you going to like help us and move quickly so we can get hired for the next job? So it's all personality, it's all perception. It's being able to put out fires without letting people see you in distress. Like you got to keep your cool because if the agency is there and the brand is there and they're wiring you 500,000 or 250,000 for a 1 day shoot, they want to feel good about it. They're already nervous. The agency producers or account directors are very nervous, especially working with somebody young or like different people. A lot of production companies are like middle-aged white baby boomers, so it's like they see these younger crews. Some people might get a little discouraged or like we just gotta show them like this is what we do. And you just got to make people feel good. And once they see that you can do it and they have the access to hire you once a month or twice a month, they will. But what I can say is you can't put all your eggs in one basket and one brand or one producer thinking they're going to hire you every time, because that's not the case. And at first, I was getting a little too attached to certain producers or brands, and when they didn't call me anymore, I'm like beating myself up about it. But at the end of the day, it was slow for them too, or like they want to go with somebody else because they just want to go with somebody else. And you just gotta like put the ego and pride aside and say, you know what, it's not me. If they want to go with somebody else, that's fine. But like that's part of the game. Like I'm bidding against 50 other directors who submit treatments, or other production companies who have 20 more years of experience than I do, bigger commercials, bigger budgets, work with bigger talent. But at the end of the day, like none of that matters if you're like true to who you are and what you do, because if you keep going, somebody's gonna call.
Yeah, that's all great pieces of advice. And I'm curious too to how does social media, what do you say, play into what you do? I know you've got multiple accounts. You've got Scuba, you got your Acadian Personal, you got the Juice brand. Like, how would you say social media plays into what you do?
Yeah, so my whole alias is like lifestyle. So I like to post stories, which like my next goal is to like post more behind the scenes and like post more reels, because I need to get myself out there. But like I had this whole thing where I wanted to build my company to where it kind of is now, to like really start educating people so people can take me serious. But as far as like social media, it's just a taste of like what I can do, you know? So like if it's a sales funnel type of situation where like your audience is gonna follow you because they're a true fan. People who follow you are your true fans, but then people who click that link in the bio to subscribe or to buy your course or to opt into your business, those are your true fans. Like that is your like cohort. Those are people who live by you, like do anything. People who run these big podcasts, like Kai Cenat, who does these live streams where like he's the number one streamer right now ever,
Yeah.
right? So like if he puts out a t-shirt, everybody's gonna buy it, sold out in 5 seconds. You know, he has those true fans. And like social media is the key to like getting to know who your people are, because anybody can just unfollow you, but if people are subscribed to your newsletter or supporting your production company, buying merch or tagging you wearing your merch, or like you have followers who are marketing managers or account directors who work at different ad agencies who might can throw your name in a hat. And for me, that's the case of a lot of people. People reply on my stories and say, my company this, I'm going to send your email to our head of communications. And like I get jobs just by like posting behind the scenes, you know, on my story. So social media definitely plays a big role in a sense of like showcasing who I am as a person, but showing the professional sides of like making 3 different accounts where like Scuba is my personal, Kadian Hall is like my director, DP, like work, and then Juice Picture is like the new account that's gonna have like more of the commercial professional look.
And out of curiosity, what's with the name Scuba? Like, what does that mean?
Superman was just like an alias. Like,
Okay.
it's funny because like my dad used to call me different names growing up. Like it was like K Rock, and then K Money in high school, and then college somewhere. People started calling me Scuba Man K, and then it's
Good
just like
nickname.
that was just my alias, and I just stuck with it.
Yeah, it's a great nickname.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's interesting to hear how social media definitely plays a part in what you do and how you're able to land jobs just from posting and stuff.
yeah,
So I'm interested to, yeah, see how that continues developing.
yeah,
Um, and my last question or last piece I have is you kind of foreshadowed or talked about it a little bit, but I'm curious to hear kind of your future goals, both in terms of you mentioned growing Juice Picture, but also helping out and mentoring youth. That's another piece of what
yeah,
you want to do, right? So I want to kind of end with hearing a little bit about those future pieces.
yeah. So I would say a future goal for me is to continue growing the company, growing it in the sense of a multi-million dollar production company, but also taking on the limb of experiential. And for those who don't know what experiential is, it's basically like brand activating. You go to Coachella, you go to Art Basel, you go to NBA All-Star Weekend, and there's so many activations going on. And a lot of film is being outsourced, leaving LA, and a lot of commercials are being shot overseas or in South America or any other place that has low taxes. And yes, TV and film and commercial is always going to be there, but I want to start making money in other avenues of marketing, whether that's activating for big brands. So I've worked with other production companies who are experiential only companies. So for example, I've worked with Savage X Fenty, which is Rihanna's brand, where we built
Yeah.
pop-up stores during the NFL Super Bowl, to promote like a new products, whether that was like Fenty clothing. Worked with Target during MLS All Star Weekend in Minnesota for the soccer fans out there, where we built like a interactive 3D photo booth where you would go in and you and your friends can like make a video with a steady cam, and then you put in your number, you take a selfie, and then the AI software sends your video to you, and it's already formatted in 916 with like the Target logo on it. So brands are willing to pay more money for experiential than commercial, because if you have an outlet to invite bigger influencers and artists to come and do a walkthrough. Say you get like Kim K, Rihanna, Justin Bieber, Brad Pitt to come to your red carpet event, like the all white parties, the Fanatics parties. Those are going to generate almost a trillion impressions. So brands would rather just pay these people to show up and like sell out products than pay production companies $5 million to do a 1 day commercial. So it's like I'm starting to see, not saying that commercial work is going to die down, but I'm starting to see that events and activations are the future, because influencer marketing is huge and it's getting bigger. And brands are now doing more UGC content with PR packaging and sending out beauty kits to women, male creators to get ready with me and do all this other stuff that if you have a following, it works. It's more effective than spending hundreds of thousands to millions on commercials. So I'm trying to figure out a way to keep in touch with brands on the commercial side as well as the experiential side, because we have the World Cup coming up, we have the Super Bowl coming to LA, and we have the Olympics coming to LA. And I have time, but not that much time. And think about how many brands are going to be present during those times. LA is going to be so busy. I'm working with LA Tourism now on a bunch of rebrands for different districts downtown LA, because everyone's preparing for these big milestone events. The Olympics are going to bring in $1 billion+ to the city of LA. So everyone's going to want to activate. You're going to have Google, you're going to have you're going to have Verizon, you're going to have all these big companies just present with a huge influencer marketing list where like they're just gonna have the money. So strategically, that's what I'm planning now, planting seeds, having these meetings. And as far as educating people, I want to start some sort of foundation where I can especially get kids from Hartford or small cities who don't know where to start, get into production, because nobody really showed me anything. Like I had to find these people and contacts on my own. But if there's a scenario where I can find a brand like Sony or Canon or Nikon or Fuji to give us cameras and like have summer internships to like have kids come to LA and create their own commercials and like somehow get it to be a college or high school credit and give them their own hotel or Airbnb and even have their parents come if necessary and kind of like give them that safe place, because it's a crazy world out here, but like making sure kids and parents feel safe about them being a creative, because it's a pretty sick world. But like I really want people to come in and get the experience and like say I was someone to help them get started, and then be able to like at the time get them internships at like Paramount or Disney or Sony, because I'm making those contacts now. If somebody needed an engineering job, I could get them a job tomorrow. So I want to have that same like connection where it comes to like studios and like getting, a lot of people don't know, a lot of content creators who like maybe thinking, oh, I want to really get into filmmaking. Like there's a difference between being a videographer and a DP, and the difference is a videographer would just take his camera and just get footage of this room and like not manipulate the light or angles of just shooting. A DP would black all these lights out, light from the outside, haze up the room, and just change the whole atmosphere to tell a story, right? So that trickles down to getting the right training and certification. If you want to be a DP, you got to get into the union. And not saying you need to, but if you want to shoot the real stuff, you need to be in local 600, because if you think you're going to be shooting Spider-Man 5 and Mission Impossible 8 because you know how to use a Sony A7R III, that's not happening. So it's like I had to understand, like, yo, nobody's gonna care if I had to understand that nobody is gonna care unless I have my certification and like get into the right crews, and that's what I did. And being able to have the knowledge and expertise to showcase what you need to do to others who want to learn is another avenue that I want to go to, because that'll save so much people time. I don't even want to charge for it, because I don't think that, if I do want to have an application process and like interview people, but like I don't think it's gonna be beneficial if I like go to Hartford or go to Newark or go to the Bronx and find a kid that's really hungry but they can't afford it, just like any other program. So I want to I want this picture to kind of like have a nonprofit entity that can kind of like pay for these things and help kids out in that sense.
Yeah.
Not just
That
kids though. Like there is an age cap getting into film, because people don't want to hire like a 40-year-old like or a 50-year-old camera operator. Yes, they still get jobs because they're in a union, but like if you come to LA and say, "Hey, I'm 55, I want a camera op," and nobody knows you, it's like it's hard. Just like corporate America, if
that's
you
interesting.
put in applications and you haven't worked in like 10 years, but you telling people you work in IT, is like, so it's like age does matter, because there's so many kids that are young from like 18 to 25 that are so good already, that's coming out of film school, right? And then you got the 25 to 35 people crew that's like killing it, that's shooting the best stuff, that's shooting TV and film, that's signed to talent agencies, shooting global commercials. And then once everybody's like, you're not shooting any features until you're like maybe 36 and up. It's very rare. Like that's just what it is. It's deep. Roger Deakins is like almost 80. Like it's like it's just, you're not shooting any features. Like you have to like earn your stripes. You can shoot commercials, but like you gotta earn your stripes and you gotta shovel shit. You can't have an ego thinking, well, I have these viral reels that got 5 million views. Nobody cares. Like you gotta like build that body of work that shows people you can light for daylight interiors. You know how to light horror, you know how to light nighttime, you know how to do high-end commercial, you can do beauty, you can do cars, like you have to. And that's what I'm working on as we speak. Like I've invested so much, even shot some passion projects, but like I'm attracting brands that I want to work with, and that takes a lot of brain power and some of my financial income to put that together. And you really gotta want it. Like you can't be out here like, oh, this YouTuber said I should get this camera, and I'm just gonna go with this camera. You need to research and buy a camera because it's what you want to do. You can't be out here Peter McKinnon or Matty Hapoya or whoever else said, "Oh, this is the best autofocus camera." You're already going down the wrong path. Like you need to be on Google researching these cameras, figuring out what the native ISO is, figuring out what cine glass that you can put on it, stop using autofocus lenses, and that's okay. But your work will get better once you start realizing that lighting and sound is the key. Yes, camera bodies help your work. It's just a tool. But if you invest in lighting and a good tripod and light modifiers and things that contribute to a good image, cinema lenses, you can get Russian prime lenses on eBay for $40 and just like going getting that vintage look, but then like lighting your scene appropriately, like that's gonna make you stand out. Everybody on YouTube's footage looks the same, and it's so commercial where like YouTubers are like, oh, this episode is sponsored by Squarespace. Once I see that, I just click off, because it's like, do you really care about this? Or are you just so comfortable in the sense of like you got all these subscribers, this is what you gotta do to pay bills, but like can one of these YouTubers get an Alexa Mini LF camera ready by 9 a.m. for a big job? I don't think so. But there's a lane, and not to like dump on the YouTubers, but it's like a lot of them out false information or put out high hopes to people who are looking to get into camera and content. because they're just selling a product for another brand. And that's what I don't like. So when I do start putting social bits and like educated YouTube like content out there, it's going to be the nitty gritty of this is what you need to do to get work. This is the type of starter camera or lens or gear that you need to get this type of look that's not too sharp looking or autofocus hunting or the colors are flat. Like, this is what you need to do. Be social. Go to Art Basel. Go to film festivals. Go to Tribeca Film Festival and shake hands. Find the collaborators in your town and make spec projects, make commercials. And that's how you get to the next level. It ain't worrying about autofocus and gimbals. Like that's just, or making viral content. There are some agencies that care about that, but it's like we're all getting older. Like we're all gonna have a family and kids and a house soon. So it's like whatever I do, it's like an investment because I know later down the road it has to make sense, or I'm just wasting my time.
Yeah. Yeah. All great advice. Especially what stands out is, yeah, like we were saying, so many people, they just rely on these YouTubers for advice, and you do got to, one, network with people, people that know their stuff, but also do your own research. And it reminds me of an earlier podcast I had. One of the guests, he worked closely with a lot of massive YouTubers, some with like 20, 40 million subscribers. And he said, not to dog on all of them, but a lot of them have their own photographers and videographers. At that point, you're not even doing your own stuff. And he said he'd come to shoots and ask them basic photography and videography things, and they wouldn't even know the answers because they don't actually know what they're doing. They just know how to entertain, not actually how to do photography and videography. So definitely do your own research. And
Exactly.
yeah, I love all
Yeah.
that. I love what you're doing as well and what you're planning to do. I think that's an awesome thing, and I'm excited to follow along on that journey and see what transpires. So yeah, Katie, and again, thanks so much for this conversation. This has
No
been
problem.
amazing, and I hope that, and I know that everybody that's listening and will listen is able to take away a lot. So before we wrap up, where's the best place online for people that are tuning in to find you?
Yeah, so at scubaman_K is my personal brand that has all of my links
Mm-hmm.
that will direct people to my DP director account and to my production company website. And feel free to reach out for any camera or networking or travel advice. I'm here. I want to be a safe haven and I want to be an educated source for people to want to jump into the world of creativity, and just I want everybody to do well. So feel free to reach out anytime and maybe we get on a Zoom and we can potentially work together.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks again, Kadian, and for everyone that's listening, check out Kadian, check out Scuba, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and tell your friends, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.